What if a woman who never posts her photos isn't hiding from the world, but simply doesn't need the world's approval? In a culture where attention has become a form of currency, choosing not to constantly display yourself can reveal something deeper about confidence, boundaries, and identity. She may still care about how she looks. She may still enjoy beautiful moments, but she doesn't need to prove that she is living through a screen. And sometimes, the woman who posts the least is the woman who has spent the most time learning who she really is. One of the most interesting things about a woman who rarely posts her photos on social media is that she may have learned not to depend on external validation. In a world where attention can feel like proof of worth, choosing not to constantly seek likes, comments, compliments, and reactions can represent a completely different mindset. It doesn't automatically mean she is more confident than everyone else, and it certainly doesn't mean every woman who posts photos lacks confidence. People use social media for many different reasons. But when a woman consciously chooses not to measure herself through online reactions, she may be protecting something far more valuable, her internal sense of worth. Think about how easily social media can train the mind to look outward. You take a picture, you post it, and then you wait. Who liked it? Who commented? How many people viewed it? Why did one picture receive more attention than another? Without realizing it, a person can begin allowing other people's reactions to influence how she feels about herself. A good response can create a temporary emotional high, while a disappointing response can create insecurity. The problem isn't the photograph. The problem is allowing an external audience to become the judge of your internal value. A woman who doesn't need that validation begins to understand something powerful. Attention is not the same thing as worth. She can look in the mirror and appreciate herself without needing hundreds of people to confirm that she looks beautiful. She can accomplish something meaningful without immediately announcing it. She can dress well, feel confident, enjoy her appearance, and still keep the experience private. Her confidence doesn't disappear simply because nobody clicked a heart beneath her picture. That kind of confidence is quieter. It doesn't demand an audience, and perhaps that's what makes it powerful. When you stop constantly asking other people to validate you, you create space to hear your own voice. You begin asking better questions. Do I like this, or do I like it because other people will approve? Am I doing this because it makes me happy, or because I want to be noticed? Do I feel beautiful because I genuinely feel good about myself, or because someone else told me I am beautiful? These questions can completely change the way a person lives. External validation can be addictive because it provides immediate emotional feedback. But internal validation develops slowly. It comes from keeping promises to yourself, overcoming difficult moments, developing your abilities, treating yourself with respect, and becoming comfortable with who you are when nobody is watching. A woman who has developed that kind of inner foundation doesn't necessarily reject social media. She simply refuses to let it define her. She understands that one photograph cannot summarize her beauty. One comment cannot determine her intelligence. One person's rejection cannot define her desirability. One viral post cannot determine her importance. And one quiet day online does not mean she has become invisible. She knows who she is beyond the screen. That is an important lesson for anyone living in today's attention-driven culture. Your value existed before anyone followed you. Your beauty existed before anyone complimented you. Your accomplishments mattered before anyone celebrated them. And your life remains meaningful even when nobody is watching. Imagine how freeing that can become. You no longer have to constantly perform happiness. You don't have to prove that you're attractive. You don't have to demonstrate that you're successful. You don't have to turn every experience into evidence that your life is going well. You can simply live. And when a woman reaches that point, her confidence becomes less dependent on circumstances. She can receive compliments without becoming addicted to them. She can accept criticism without allowing it to destroy her. She can post a picture when she genuinely wants to and remain completely comfortable when she doesn't. That is the difference between expressing yourself and seeking permission to feel worthy. Real confidence doesn't say, "Look at me so I can feel valuable." Real confidence says, "I know my value, whether you look at me or not." And perhaps that is one of the deepest psychological reasons some women choose to remain quiet online. They aren't necessarily trying to disappear. They may simply have stopped needing strangers to confirm that they deserve to be seen. Not everything meaningful needs to be made public. In a world where people can share almost every detail of their lives with hundreds or even thousands of people, choosing privacy can become a powerful form of self-respect. A woman who doesn't regularly post her photos may simply understand that access to her life is something she gets to control. She doesn't believe that being private means being secretive. She understands the difference between hiding and choosing. There is a certain strength in being able to say, this part of my life belongs to me. Not because she's ashamed of it, not because she's afraid of people, but because she recognizes that some things become more valuable when they are protected. Her happiness doesn't have to become public information. Her relationships don't have to become entertainment. Her personal struggles don't have to become content. Her appearance doesn't have to become available for constant evaluation. Privacy gives a person room to live without constantly wondering how an audience might react. Imagine being able to experience a beautiful moment without immediately thinking about the perfect angle, the perfect caption, or how many people might respond. Imagine being able to enjoy a vacation without feeling pressure to prove that you were there. Imagine accomplishing something important and allowing yourself to celebrate it quietly before telling anyone else. That doesn't make the achievement smaller, it makes it yours. A woman with strong personal boundaries understands that not everyone deserves unlimited access to her life. She can be friendly without being completely available. She can be social without revealing everything. She can love people deeply while still maintaining parts of herself that remain private. This is especially important because social media can create the illusion that visibility equals connection. But being visible doesn't automatically mean being understood. Thousands of people may know what someone looks like while knowing almost nothing about who that person actually is. Privacy creates a different kind of relationship with the world. Instead of asking, what should I show people? She can ask, what do I actually want to share? That small change puts her back in control. She becomes the person deciding where the boundaries are. And boundaries are not walls designed to keep everyone away. Healthy boundaries are doors. They allow the right people in while giving you the ability to close the door when you need peace. A woman who protects her privacy may also understand that public opinions can complicate private experiences. The moment you share something with a large audience, everyone suddenly has an opinion. People can judge your appearance, question your decisions, comment on your relationships, compare your life to theirs, or interpret your silence however they want. But when you keep certain things private, you protect yourself from unnecessary noise. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to defend every decision. You don't have to correct every misunderstanding. And you don't have to turn your personal life into a courtroom where strangers are constantly giving their verdict. There is tremendous freedom in realizing that you are allowed to live without explaining yourself to everyone. Of course, privacy should never be confused with fear or isolation. A woman can be private and still have deep friendships, meaningful relationships, and a vibrant social life. She can share photos occasionally, celebrate important moments, and enjoy social platforms while still maintaining clear limits. The point isn't how many pictures she posts. The deeper question is whether she controls what she shares, or whether she feels pressured to share because she fears being forgotten. There is a major difference between choosing privacy and being controlled by insecurity. One comes from self-respect, the other comes from fear. A woman who chooses privacy understands that her life does not become more valuable simply because more people can see it. She knows that some of her most important growth will happen quietly. Some of her biggest victories may never receive applause. Some of her happiest memories may never become posts, and she is okay with that, because she doesn't need an audience for every chapter of her life. She understands that maturity sometimes means knowing what deserves attention and what deserves protection. In the end, privacy is not about disappearing from the world. It is about refusing to give the entire world a front row seat to your life. You decide what people see. You decide what they don't. And when you understand that distinction, you stop living for exposure and start living with intention. A woman who doesn't constantly post herself online may have developed something that is becoming increasingly difficult to protect in a world of endless opinions, a strong sense of identity. She knows that who she is cannot be reduced to photographs, captions, reactions, trends, or the number of people who follow her. Her identity exists beyond the screen, and when you understand that, you stop needing the world to constantly tell you who you are. Social media can be entertaining and useful, but it can also create a subtle pressure to shape yourself according to what receives attention. You see what other people are wearing, where they are traveling, how they look, what they are achieving, and what kind of lifestyle seems to be celebrated. Without realizing it, comparison can begin influencing your choices. You may start asking, should I look like that? Should my life look like that? Should I be doing more? Should I be presenting myself differently? A woman with a stronger sense of identity learns to step outside that pressure. She can admire another woman without feeling threatened by her. She can see someone else's beauty without questioning her own. She can celebrate another person's success without deciding that her own life is somehow behind. She understands that another person's path does not cancel hers. That is a powerful psychological shift. When your identity is uncertain, other people's opinions can easily become instructions. If people praise one version of you, you may feel pressure to keep being that version. If people criticize another version, you may begin hiding it. Eventually, you are no longer asking yourself what feels authentic. You are asking what will receive approval. But when you know yourself, you become less dependent on the crowd. You can change your hairstyle because you genuinely want to, not because it is trending. You can dress differently because it expresses who you are, not because an algorithm told you what is attractive. You can choose a quiet lifestyle even when everyone around you seems to be competing for attention. You don't need to constantly reinvent yourself for an audience. You become comfortable being the same person when the camera is on and when it is off. That consistency is one of the foundations of authentic confidence. A strong identity also means knowing what you value, what matters to you, what kind of person do you want to become, what principles guide your decisions, what kind of relationships do you want, what are you willing to say no to. These questions have nothing to do with followers. They have everything to do with character. And character is built privately. It is built when you keep a promise to yourself. It is built when you choose discipline instead of comfort. It is built when you walk away from something that doesn't respect you. It is built when you admit that you were wrong. It is built when you continue growing even though nobody is applauding. A woman who has built her identity around these things doesn't need constant digital confirmation. She may post a photograph occasionally, but the photograph is an expression of her identity, not the foundation of it. That distinction matters. When social media becomes the foundation, every reaction feels personal. A lack of likes can feel like rejection. A negative comment can feel like an attack on your identity. Someone else's success can feel like evidence that you're failing. But when your identity is built deeper, those things lose some of their power. You can hear an opinion without becoming that opinion. You can receive criticism without allowing it to define you. You can receive praise without becoming dependent on it. You can simply say, that is their perspective. I know who I am. There is also freedom in realizing that you don't have to make every version of yourself understandable to everyone. Some people may never understand your choices. Some may think you're too quiet. Others may think you're too independent. Some may wonder why you don't post more. You don't have to convince them. Your identity isn't a public debate. The woman who knows herself can walk into a room without needing to dominate it. She can leave a room without wondering whether everyone noticed. She can live quietly without feeling irrelevant, because she understands something that many people spend years trying to learn. You don't discover yourself by asking everyone else who you should be. You discover yourself by becoming quiet enough to hear your own thoughts. And perhaps that is what makes a woman who doesn't constantly display herself online so interesting. She may not be trying to create an image of herself for the world. She may already be busy creating a life that feels authentic to her. She doesn't need the screen to tell her who she is. She knows there is a difference between experiencing a moment and performing a moment for an audience. In a world where almost everything can become content, some women choose to experience their lives without constantly documenting them. They may travel without posting every location, enjoy a meal without photographing it, spend time with people they love without broadcasting the conversation, or accomplish something meaningful without immediately announcing it. Their decision isn't necessarily about rejecting social media. It may simply reflect a deeper preference. They would rather live the moment than prove the moment happened. Think about how often people experience something beautiful and immediately reach for their phones. Before they have fully felt the moment, they are thinking about how it will look on a screen. What picture should I take? What caption should I write? How will people react? Which angle looks best? The experience can slowly become secondary to the presentation. But a woman who doesn't feel compelled to post everything may have discovered another way to live. She allows herself to be present. She lets the moment exist without needing an audience. And presence is powerful. When you are fully present, you notice things differently. You notice the conversation instead of thinking about documenting it. You notice the scenery instead of searching for the perfect photograph. You listen more carefully. You laugh more freely. You experience emotions without immediately wondering how they will appear to someone else. There is a special kind of peace in knowing that a beautiful moment doesn't need to be uploaded to become real. A sunset is still beautiful if nobody sees your picture of it. A meaningful conversation is still valuable if nobody knows it happened. A personal achievement is still an achievement, even if it receives no public applause. A happy relationship doesn't become more genuine because strangers can see photographs of it. These are simple truths, but they become powerful when you actually live by them. Some women understand that their memories belong to them first. They don't need to turn every experience into evidence for an audience. They can keep photographs in a private album. They can tell a close friend about something special. They can simply store the memory in their mind. And sometimes the most meaningful memories are the ones that were never interrupted by the need to capture them. This doesn't mean posting photos is wrong. Sharing moments can be joyful. It can help people stay connected, celebrate milestones, and preserve memories. The issue is not the camera. The issue is whether the camera controls the experience. If you can't enjoy the moment unless people know about it, that's worth examining. If you feel uncomfortable enjoying something unless you can prove it happened, that's worth examining too. Because when your happiness depends on being witnessed, you slowly surrender part of your experience to the audience. A woman who values real-life experiences understands that attention is temporary, but experiences become part of who you are. The trip changes you. The conversation teaches you. The difficult season strengthens you. The quiet morning restores you. The people you love shape you. None of these things require a post. This way of living can also protect relationships. Imagine sitting across from someone you care about and giving them your full attention. No phone between you, no need to capture the conversation, no pressure to create an image of closeness for other people. You are simply there. That kind of presence communicates something powerful. This moment matters enough to me that I don't need to share it with anyone else. There is intimacy in that. There is also confidence in being able to enjoy something without receiving external recognition for it. You don't need people to envy your vacation for the vacation to be meaningful. You don't need compliments on your appearance to enjoy dressing well. You don't need people to admire your lifestyle to know that you are building a life you love. You can stop performing happiness and start experiencing it. And perhaps that is one of the quiet strengths of a woman who doesn't constantly post herself. She may have realized that life is not a stage where every beautiful moment needs an audience. Some moments are meant to be lived. Some memories are meant to remain private. Some victories are meant to be celebrated quietly. And when you stop worrying about proving that your life is meaningful, you finally have more freedom to make it meaningful. A woman who doesn't constantly post her photos may understand something that is easy to forget in an attention-driven world. Attention is not the same as connection. Being noticed by hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people doesn't necessarily mean that anyone truly knows you. You can receive compliments from strangers and still feel lonely. You can have countless followers and still have nobody you can call when life becomes difficult. Visibility can create the appearance of connection without always creating the substance of it. Real connection is different. Real connection happens when someone knows your personality, your fears, your dreams, your imperfections, your sense of humor, your struggles, and the things you don't show everyone else. It happens through conversations, trust, shared experiences, loyalty, and time. It doesn't require an audience. A woman who values this kind of connection may naturally become less interested in constantly presenting herself online. She doesn't need everyone to know her. She wants the right people to know her. That distinction can change the way you approach relationships. Instead of asking, how many people notice me? You begin asking, who actually understands me? Instead of chasing attention, you start building trust. Instead of trying to become popular, you become intentional about the people you allow close to you. And that can be incredibly freeing. Social media often rewards visibility. The more frequently you post, the more opportunities you have to receive reactions. But reactions are not necessarily relationships. Someone can like your photograph without knowing anything about your character. Someone can compliment your appearance without knowing what kind of person you are when life becomes difficult. A woman who understands this doesn't necessarily reject compliments. She simply doesn't confuse them with intimacy. She knows that someone saying, "You're beautiful," is not the same as someone saying, "I understand what you've been through, and I'm still here." One is attention, the other is connection. And mature relationships are built on the second. This understanding can also change how a woman sees her own beauty. When beauty becomes dependent on attention, it can feel temporary and fragile. You need another compliment tomorrow because yesterday's compliment has already faded. But when you stop depending on attention, beauty becomes something you experience rather than something you constantly prove. You can take care of yourself because you enjoy feeling healthy and confident, not because you need strangers to approve of your appearance. You can dress elegantly because it expresses your personality, not because you're competing for attention. Your appearance becomes an expression of self-respect rather than a request for approval. And there is another powerful benefit. You become more selective about where you spend your emotional energy. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone needs to know what you're doing. Not everyone needs to understand your choices. Not everyone who shows interest genuinely cares about you. A woman who understands the difference between attention and connection becomes more careful about who she trusts. She watches actions instead of simply listening to words. She notices consistency. She values people who show up when there is nothing to gain because genuine connection reveals itself when the spotlight disappears. Anyone can celebrate you when you're successful. The deeper question is who stays when you're struggling. Anyone can compliment your appearance. The deeper question is who respects your mind, your boundaries, and your character. Anyone can react to a photograph. The deeper question is who remembers what you said months ago because they were actually listening. That is why a smaller circle can sometimes provide more fulfillment than a massive audience. You don't need 1,000 people who barely know you when you have a few people who genuinely understand you. You don't need constant notifications when you have meaningful conversations. You don't need to be constantly visible when you are genuinely connected. This doesn't mean a woman should isolate herself or avoid social media completely. It simply means she understands that digital attention should never become a substitute for human connection. Technology can help us communicate, but it cannot replace presence. A screen can show you someone's photograph, but it cannot give you the warmth of sitting beside them during a difficult moment. A comment can say, "I'm proud of you," but it cannot always replace the person who actually shows up when you need support. Real connection requires something social media cannot manufacture: presence. And perhaps that's why some women choose to live more quietly online. They aren't trying to become invisible. They may simply be investing their energy somewhere deeper, into friendships, into family, into meaningful conversations, into personal growth, into relationships where they don't have to perform. Because at the end of the day, being known by the right people is often more valuable than being noticed by everyone. Attention can make you visible, conventions can make you feel understood. And a woman who knows the difference doesn't need to chase the first when she already values the second. Perhaps one of the most powerful things about a woman who doesn't constantly post her photos is that she may have learned to feel confident without needing an audience. She doesn't need everyone to see her in order to believe that she matters. She doesn't need hundreds of compliments to feel beautiful. She doesn't need strangers to approve of her choices before she trusts herself. Her confidence comes from within, and that makes it much harder for the outside world to control. There is a huge difference between being confident and being constantly reassured. Reassurance feels good, but confidence doesn't depend on receiving it every day. A confident woman can appreciate a compliment without needing another one tomorrow. She can post a picture because she genuinely likes it without becoming emotionally dependent on the reactions. And she can choose not to post anything at all without feeling that she has disappeared. That is emotional freedom. Think about how much energy people spend trying to manage other people's perceptions. They choose photographs carefully. They delete pictures that don't receive enough attention. They compare themselves to people online. They worry about how they look, what others think, and whether they are being noticed. Imagine taking all that energy and turning it inward, instead of asking, how do people see me? You begin asking, how do I see myself? That question changes everything, because your relationship with yourself is the one relationship you cannot escape. People will come and go. Followers will change. Trends will disappear. Opinions will shift. But you will still have to live with yourself when the phone is silent. A woman who understands this begins building confidence through things that cannot be measured by likes. She keeps promises to herself. She develops skills. She takes care of her body. She learns from her mistakes. She sets boundaries. She walks away from disrespect. She continues growing when nobody is watching. These things may never become viral, but they build something much more important than visibility. They build character, and character creates a deeper form of confidence. When your confidence comes from your character, criticism doesn't destroy you as easily. You can listen without immediately collapsing. You can admit when someone has a point without feeling that your entire identity has been attacked. You can also reject unfair criticism without needing to prove yourself to everyone. You become grounded. And being grounded means you don't have to constantly explain your existence. You can walk into a room without wondering whether everyone finds you attractive. You can leave a room without wondering whether everyone noticed. You can spend a weekend without posting a single picture. You can achieve something without announcing it immediately. You can enjoy your appearance without turning it into a public performance. And you can be comfortable knowing that your worth remains exactly where it was before anyone reacted. That is a powerful realization, because the world will always offer you another standard to chase, another trend, another beauty ideal, another successful person to compare yourself with, another reason to believe you are not doing enough. If you allow the outside world to determine your worth, there will never be a final destination. There will always be someone more attractive, someone richer, someone more popular, someone younger, someone with more followers, someone receiving more attention. But when you measure yourself against your own values, the competition changes. You stop trying to become someone else. You start becoming more fully yourself. And that is what makes inner confidence so different from external validation. External validation says, I am valuable because you approve of me. Internal confidence says, your approval is appreciated, but it is not required. That doesn't make a woman cold or arrogant. In fact, genuine confidence often makes a person more compassionate. When you don't desperately need approval, you can celebrate other people's success without feeling threatened. You can compliment another woman without comparing yourself to her. You can admire beauty without believing that someone else's beauty reduces yours. You become secure enough to let other people shine. And perhaps that is the deeper lesson behind choosing not to constantly post yourself online. The goal isn't to disappear. The goal is to stop performing for permission to exist. You don't have to prove that you're beautiful. You don't have to prove that you're happy. You don't have to prove that you're successful. You don't have to prove that your life has value. Live it, build it, improve it, protect it, enjoy it. Let your confidence come from the person you are becoming, not from the reaction you receive. Because when you finally become comfortable with yourself, the audience becomes optional. And that is when confidence becomes powerful, not because everyone is watching, but because you no longer need anyone to watch.